Let's bring in CTV News political commentator Scott Reid, who's standing by here. All right, we're waiting for Mark Carney to come out. There's been a delay, about 45 minutes. We understand, there's lots going on here in the middle of a federal election campaign. What do you think Mark Carney's going to say here, Scott?
Well, obviously, he's met with his cabinet committee on Canada-U.S. relations. My guess is that the phone lines have been burned up pretty heavily between Washington and Ottawa, if not with the president and the prime minister, then at least with Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. We see reports out of Toronto that Ontario Premier Doug Ford has been in contact with Lutnick, and he's hinting that when the April 2nd tariffs are applied, there will be a series of exemptions or rollbacks for the Canadian auto sector so that it might not be as bad as it looked last night. But look, who in hell knows? This is what it is to deal with this White House. An announcement is made. It sounds devastating. Is it what it really sounds like? Is it something else? I'm hoping that, first of all, Prime Minister Carney will be able to provide some clarity on what he believes and the government believes we are confronted with in terms of economic impact. And then I expect you're going to hear him talk about what the plan is in terms of retaliatory tariffs and support for industry and workers.
Right. So there's the shock factor. It leaves your rivals reeling. There's the chaos factor. You don't know what exactly is going to happen. Everyone goes running to try and get some kind of an exemption as well. Reuters was reporting there was a phone call. Then they retracted that, saying there was, in fact, no phone call yet between Mark Carney and Donald Trump as well. And this is really kind of, skewing the whole federal election. Mark Carney was Liberal leader. He still is. But now he's going to be coming out as Canadian Prime Minister, acting in that capacity, speaking on behalf of the Canadian government. Scott.
And we saw this happen a little bit during the Ontario election, if you'll remember, because trade interventions from Donald Trump caused Premier Ford to have to take off the party leader hat, put on the provincial leader hat, and go down in the United States and deal with, and again, in this case, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. So you are obviously seeing the Prime Minister straddle his responsibilities both as a contestant in an election, but also as a leader of our country at a time when our country is under direct and forceful attack economically from the United States. And what's the political takeaway from all of that? I think it's challenging for Pierre Poilievre because it, again, underlines that the real issue in this election and the only issue facing the country is Donald Trump and tariffs. And it literally puts Mark Carney on the prime ministerial stage, removes him from the daily cut and thrust of partisan politics, and allows him to stand above it all as he responds on behalf of the country.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that certainly for Pierre Poilievre, he has come out forcefully against Donald Trump. And, we are still only day 5 in, what is going to be another month or so in this election. And lots can happen before the actual vote. But the effect for the Conservatives here and what you think we're going to see from Pierre Poilievre, because he's scheduled to speak later today as well, Scott.
So there's been a certain stubbornness, if you will, to the strategy of the Conservatives. Of course, they've allowed for the reality of Donald Trump and these tariffs, and they've talked about standing firm and being strong, and they've talked about protecting Canada. But really, their message for the campaign has been time for a change, throw the bums out, a very typical, very time-tested political slogan. And it'll be interesting to see today if in the face of this specific hostility, his campaign adjusts, if his message adjusts, if he gets rid of the pure political script that we've come to know and says something more pronounced and more specific with respect to how he would handle matters if he was prime minister. And this is the last thing I would say. I think it's the most important thing, to be honest with you, if you're Pierre Poilievre. Ultimately, Pierre Poilievre cannot win this election. And for that matter, Mark Carney can't win this election unless Canadians see them as the person best capable of managing this relationship with the United States, managing our trade relationship with Donald Trump, and taking on the hostility of Trump. The leader who is best able to convince Canadians they can do that well and in their public interest is the leader who will be on April 28th Prime Minister. Pierre Poilievre's got a little catch-up on that side of the ledger.
Wow, lots to consider and a lot of unknowns here, my friend. Thanks for this in the meantime.